So the last couple weeks we've been talking through Mark chapter 3 verses 1 through 5, where we ended last week with verse number 6, that the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. Tonight we're going to focus on 7 through 12, and what we're going to do tonight is do a little bit of discussion at your tables. And then I'm going to come back at the end, kind of circle through and look at a couple of quick things with you. But this is one of the first sort of what I can't even remember the name of the movie. It got stuck in my head as a kid, and I have no idea if it was a good movie or bad movie or appropriate movie, but it was in my head. As there was a movie that came out when I was little, my dad watched it, and the guy would say, "Right turn, Clyde." Does anyone know what that? I tried to find it.
Every which way
am I making that up? Does anyone remember it? Yeah, it was a monkey.
Every which way you can, every which way but loose.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, so it's probably good and clean. So, wholesome sort of family show.
Yeah.
But that's my memory. And so, but there was, he would say "right turn, Clyde" or something.
Yeah.
So whatever that was, he would hit or something.
He
But
would
anyway,
stick his arm out.
is that what it was? But in my mind, it's just one of those sayings that's been stuck in my mind since I was a kid. This is where Jesus takes a right turn. Where he does, I'm not saying Jesus is a monkey, but look at some of you people. They're like, what I'm saying is, it's just what's in my head. Jesus continues to do the unexpected. The chapter 2 and the first part of chapter 3, Jesus has been infuriating to the people who are around him. And so we kind of get this because we kind of enjoy it. Because we like it when people we don't like get it stuck to them. That's basically. So we like the fact people are getting healed, and we like the bad guys getting their eyes poked. We love it. But Jesus continues the unexpected tour, the take the right turn you don't imagine. And he does it here in verse number 7. Because if you are building a following, if you are starting a revolution, if you are changing everything, the one thing you need more than any other resource is people. You need to build the crowd. And Jesus does seemingly the opposite. He does the unexpected. And so, if you haven't been in our class before, this is whenever we run an unexpected, my default sort of study platform is to suddenly hit the brakes and start asking questions. To look at the text and start asking questions. So we've only got, 5 verses here. So what I want you to do is I'm going to divide the room in half, okay? And I'm going to give you a couple different verses each, and then we're going to talk. I want you to start making your questions. Now, some of you who are new, all we're doing right now is listing questions. We're not searching for the answer yet. Answers are coming. But right now, it's just the questions, the things that strike you as you wonder what's going on, why is this happening, and be as specific as you can. And let's do it this way. Let's just divide the room in half. So everybody on this side of the room, so that would be over here, you guys get verses 7, 8, and 9, okay? And then over here on this side of the room, you guys get 10, 11, and 12, okay? So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Pick somebody at your table to read the passage out to you, and then start making some questions. This one's not deep. Like, you're not going to find amazing, crazy, where am I going to find these questions kind of things. These are simple and straight to the point. So on your mark, get set, go.
Miss Francis, would you like to read for us?
Sure. 7. Jesus withdrew his disciples to the lake, and a large crowd from Galilee followed him. When they heard all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan, and around Tyre and Sidon. Where's the lake? Where's the lake?
Judea, Jerusalem.
Really, the
Judea.
only lake that would have been around would have been the Dead Sea.
Or
Well,
Galilee.
what's that right there by Galilee?
Judea.
That's
and
the
then,
lake. Yeah, apparently he never left a radius around that lake.
Okay.
So 20 went to Jerusalem.
Did you want me to read the rest of it?
One more verse.
One more, maybe.
Verse 9.
Across
Because of the
Jordan.
crowd, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him to keep the people from crowding him.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, I didn't know we were supposed to go through this.
Where's Tyre and Sidon? There. Tyre. Okay.
The bad thing is whenever you go to the paper to try and make it bigger,
Yeah, it won't go.
That doesn't work.
You trying to pinch to zoom?
yeah.
So question.
So open the lake up there by Galilee.
All right, Judea.
Okay, so one of my questions is why is people from Judea and Jerusalem all the way up there?
Why are they traveling so far north?
Yes, why are they traveling so far north up?
To the lake.
Well, there's two bodies of lakes that
far
are
is
up
it?
there by Tida.
Yeah.
Tiberias.
One tiny one.
And it's like, yeah, it's right there at Galilee and stuff, and there's one right above which is really small.
So maybe the
we
question
don't
would be,
know which one is
what lake did he withdraw to?
Yeah.
And yeah,
So
it's
then,
Not this.
we're gonna-
like which lake and why were they so far north?
well, depending on what the lake is, they might be.
Well, you gotta think during that time though, everybody's like walking that stuff or their own horses or something of that nature.
Yeah, that's a long way to travel.
Yeah, that's a pretty good distance.
Especially without a car.
Yeah.
So Jerusalem is supposed to the
Van
lake.
Tyre.
And a large crowd
But what is
from
that?
Galilee followed.
Can't find that one. Nope,
Two
study it right there.
hands.
Can't read it.
I wonder how much is there a gap between verse 7 and verse 8? So you had the large crowd from Galilee followed. And then we have when they heard everything he was doing, all these people from the south and further up north, just really from kind of all over the eastern side.
From the distant
followed
sites.
as well. From the distant sides came. So is there a gap there, or were they part of the large crowd from the beginning? Because of the crowd, he told his to have a small boat ready.
Going south.
Yeah, it's just north of the word Judea.
And Sidon's further north than Tyre. Or Tyre or
Tyre.
How did the people from Judea, Jerusalem, and wherever hear about it?
Yeah, how did they hear about it? Why were they so far up north? And where was he at that he felt like he took his disciples and withdrew the disciples.
It's, I think the whole deal's 3 or 4 days walk. 3 or 4 day walk. From
Yeah.
the whole area.
That's not as bad. but-
Israel's really not that big.
All depends on who's doing the walking.
Yeah.
So we know they were up north because they were in Galilee. So, because he said the large crowd from Galilee followed. So they definitely were following from there.
I wonder,
Where did they
what time of year is this? Do people not have their own farms and animals to be working that they're just like, oh yeah, my boss probably wouldn't like it if I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do contracts for a while. I'm going to go follow this dude around up north. You know? What's going on in their personal lives that they
Well, if they're
trek across the
if
country?
he's healing diseases, you'd stop everything to
Yeah. It'll take
get healing.
days or weeks off just to do that.
Right.
Tell your boss I'm going to get healed.
But we don't have that from the text.
So,
With
now,
the most part of these family systems, you would have 3 to 5 families in one house. So you'd have enough to continue working while
Yeah.
2 or 3 went.
another thing is how large was the crowd that he felt like he had to get out in a boat to get away from them?
Well, they push into him so and people can't hear him because there's so many people around.
Yeah, they didn't have megaphones or
Doesn't it say somewhere in the Bible that Jesus was tempted in every way that we are, right?
Easily.
So
Okay.
not in the tempting, but just, I wonder if he ever felt overwhelmed, stressed out from having people crowded around him. I certainly would.
I'll give you another minute to wrap up your conversation.
So I think 8, I don't think there's a gap between 7 and 8.
Okay.
I think 8 is delving deeper. I think 7 and 9 are talking about the same crowd. The large crowd gathered, and because of the crowd, he said, "Take me out on the boat." I think 8 is explaining who the crowd was. Yes, it's a crowd from Galilee, but it's all these people from Sidon down to Idumea. So that's almost like a parenthetical.
They had kind of gone to Galilee, and now,
Right. Because that's where he was.
and now we go together to
He
the lake.
withdrew, they followed.
Yeah.
Of course, that's an
All
answer,
right,
not a
let's
question.
hear it.
Boo.
I know, I'm so bad at questions, not
Verses
answers.
7, 8, and 9. Which side of the room has that one? All right, so what questions did you come up with? Why did Jesus withdraw? Probably the most, I don't know if there's a most important, but this is the one that jumps out at you first. Everything's going good, and he withdraws.
Why now? Why now?
And why then? Which speaks to not only what his motive is, but what circumstances were taking place that he understood this was the moment that he should go.
Well, he said to keep the people from crowding him. They've been crowding him everywhere he was.
What changed?
What else?
Why were the people in the south region in Galilee for? What made everybody go up to Galilee in the first place? What was happening?
Yeah, we've got, we're going to come to this in a second. Good question. For those of you who didn't read that piece, look at verse number 8 for a second. When they heard all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, I call it, you pronounce it either way, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. And so we'll talk about that in a second. That just sounds like a bunch of places, but most of you got no clue where those are, right?
Where was he?
And where was he?
Yeah.
So all it says is he withdrew to the lake.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
lake?
So which lake is that?
Yeah.
Well, from Galilee, so there's only 2 lakes up there. That was what our next one was. Which one
Yeah.
was it?
On the map, there's only 2, but I don't know if it's lake number 7 here in Lakewood, or lake number 4, or lake number 3. I mean, we got lakes that don't show up on maps, and so
6 or 7 total.
my uncle had a pond that he called his lake. So I mean, right?
Yeah.
What other questions? I look at this in verse number 8. When they heard all he was doing, many people came. Okay,
How'd they hear? There were no cell phones, and
you're exactly right, Troy. We live in a culture where you can hear about something before it happens. Right? It's on 3 social media sites before it actually even took place. You think that's true, because they can generate those things before they hit, and a good campaign for something has already preconceived it. Plus, we all know the Russians make up stuff anyway, so it's going to happen. So it's there. But if you want to get the message out 200 miles away, that requires effort. Things have to happen for that to take place.
Get on the river and go.
Good questions. Verses 10, 11, and 12. What questions did you guys come up with?
well, it kind of follows through from the previous verse there. For he had healed many. For he had healed many. So then the statement's following, but it was because he had healed the many.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they were crowded.
Heals the people, but yet the people with diseases are trying to touch him. What is the difference? I mean, everybody there doesn't have diseases, do they?
It's a good observation. One that many, many people miss. Because we're not going to spend tons of time working through word structure here, but here is a good place for structure here is Jesus healed how many people? Many. So we can eliminate some other words. And what are those words?
You can understand what I mean here.
All. And you get the indication from this text. You can't make an absolute statement, but you can make an indication. Did everyone get healed?
No.
No.
No. Because they're trying to get to it. And it doesn't happen. And what is Jesus' initial response to people who are chasing him to be healed? That's his second response. What's his first response? He left. I mean, you've already painted Jesus in a picture of, remember the dude with the holding the lamb and petting it and love everybody? But they're coming to him. What did Jesus do?
Withdrew.
He withdrew. We got to come to grips with this. Because Jesus, we've got this sort of image in our head, but let's just pause for a second. Do you believe Jesus had the ability to heal people?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Did Jesus heal people?
Absolutely.
Yes.
How cruel of Jesus to have the power and the authority to heal people and yet not do it. Look, I'll come to you. Let me just walk through something. You think some of you are cringing, but that's because you've already painted Jesus as the person. Let me tell you a different story. Let's say we've got a guy who's a millionaire, who has millions of disposable dollars, that he can do whatever he wants and it makes no impact on him whatsoever. And he walks into a room of people who have zero money and have no ability to buy the medicine they need to save their life. And he walks through the room and does not give them the money to buy the medicine that will save their lives. What do you think of that man?
Evil, self-centered.
Why wouldn't he help?
You see what I'm saying? So you got to spin your head just a second.
What do we do?
So you got to come to grips with this. So go ahead. I'm going to make your comments.
Well, what I was wondering, and this is another passage of when he held the woman with the issue, he said he felt the virtue come out of it. And my wonder is, did he have the strength to heal lots and lots and lots?
So what impact did this have on Jesus? That's good. That's a good question.
Did they have to touch him?
Did they have to touch him? Because it says they're trying to touch him. But we don't have any indication here that they're healed because they touched him. I mean, Mark leaves a lot of details out. That's what I'm saying. We can't make bold, brash statements, and I'm making some bold, brash statements. But I'm saying this. We gotta embrace the whole picture here. Unless you say, well, Randy, you're being goofy. I'll tell you, this is a passage, and these are the kind of stories where people say, I don't want to follow Jesus. Because if he has the ability to do something, and he chooses not to do that for me, I can be incredibly resentful about that. Anyone want to be honest and say you've been frustrated at God that he didn't do what you wanted him to do?
Yeah.
Or even needed him to do?
But also you can believe that you are healed, in the presence of God, and you can be healed.
I agree, but these people weren't. I'm like, at the end of the day, we have to be able to willing to say there were some people standing on the edge of the lake who wanted to be healed, and they didn't get healed. Okay? Somehow this has to push into your God concept. Because if you don't, all Jesus becomes is Santa Claus who does what you say. Or vending machine is probably a better metaphor. The genie that you can touch and you get what you want.
But I don't know all the circumstances, so I would not be able to judge why certain people did or didn't, if they did something that or shouldn't have done something, and what Jesus' thoughts is toward that.
Sarah makes a good point. Now we got to move to the people themselves. So there's lots of layers inside of here. There's lots of stuff taking place, and again, we don't build your life's vision on this. But let me just challenge you. These kinds of questions are ones that we have to wrestle with, because in our minds, Jesus is the guy who, when you need something, you go to him and you get it. I'll tell you, that's not Jesus.
I would guess, if I had to
guess, and make an assertion that the ones that were healed were the ones where he was going to receive the most glory.
And Sarah raised a good point. But now we've just moved to a second layer in this conversation, which is now we're starting to qualify and explain people that we have no idea who they are. And so we can put some pieces together here, but let's not miss this important principle. Jesus is not someone who gives you what you want.
Give you what
This has to be a part of your understanding of spirituality and following. Jesus is more than someone who just gives you what you want. Yeah, I used vending machine. Russ just used slot machine Jesus. That you put stuff in, and eventually you're going to get the right sort of sequence. You're going to cover all the bases. I don't know what I'm talking about because I was watching a movie instead of being at a casino when I was young. I don't know how that all works out. But this is not Jesus. Jesus is not a manipulated deity who does what we want. All right, what other questions you got? Yeah.
How many was many?
How many was many? That's another thing. Because, for me, if I've got, 3 people trying to jump me in an alley, that's many. But if I'm eating M&Ms, 3 ain't many. Right? It's just the way it works. But you're got it. So what does that mean? Tony's exactly right. It's enough that we know that there's a crush there.
3 M&Ms ain't many either.
Yeah, that's right. What else did you get? There's some good questions in here.
Was he still angry?
Was Jesus still angry? Well, let's hold that second because we're coming back to it. Because that goes back to your motive. Why did he withdraw?
I wonder how these sick people pushing forward to Jesus, how did that impact all the other people who were just kind of there trying to listen?
Yeah, so let's do another different story because he's got another point here, and this is an image again. I'm just in practical real world. So the most dangerous media-driven disease we have in the world right now is what? Coronavirus. Let's just pretend for a second. Half of the people in this room have the coronavirus.
I'm out.
And they're trying to get to Jesus to get healed. And the other half of you are here just to hang out and learn from Jesus. How are you going to feel about all these corona people pushing through the touch of you? Correct. So, what kind of people do we know Jesus heals? Unclean people. What else? Leprous people.
Possessed.
This is not
contagious.
This is you got to put your image. Crawl into the story. What does the scene look like? Lucas?
You have 3 groups of people. The people who are sick, pushing each other, probably running through the water to try and get the boat, screaming.
Right.
You have the regular people who are there just because this is interesting. We want to hear what this guy has to say. And then you have a bunch of evil spirits bowing down to the guy on the boat saying, "You are the Son of God."
Yeah, seriously, Lucas just described the scene. Did you hear what he said? Mm-hmm. You got a bunch of sick people pushing each other to get to him to get healed. You've got a bunch of other people who we're just going to look at in a minute who have traveled hundreds of miles to hear him or be healed. And then you got a bunch of demon-possessed people yelling what?
You're the Son of God.
You're the Son of God. You're the Son of God. This is not Grandma's quilting bee. Right?
It's the advanced quilting.
Chaos comes to mind on this. Mm-hmm. This isn't to mention, this doesn't even bring in the Pharisees who are sitting around taking pot shots. This doesn't happen, this doesn't even take into fact, because they haven't entirely been called yet. We haven't picked the 12 disciples, but we got people who've been called. You got his closest followers trying to, running their fingers through their hair, trying to figure out what are we going to do here. And they're like, how do we solve this? And he goes, get me a boat. You want a boat? Your answer to this is a boat? There's all these layers. It's chaos. And in the middle of this chaos is this one individual who is absolutely in control. And who is it? And how do I know he's in control? I know he's in control because not everyone's healed. Secondly, he's the only one giving directions. He's the only one who presents a plan to accomplish his purpose. Now, everyone else had a plan for him that day. So what was the sick people's plan for Jesus that day?
Heal me.
Use him.
What was the demon-possessed people's plan for him that day? We don't really understand completely, but they're declaring he's the Son of God, and he tells them to do what?
Shut up.
Shut up. You've got a plan for him. The verse before our passages, what are the Pharisees, the religious leaders, what's their plan for him?
Kill him.
To get him killed. Who is clearly absent any kind of plan at all? The disciples, his followers, the helpers. Oh, he wants a boat. And yet Jesus stays absolutely in control and doesn't allow the needs and the wants of the people to distract him. He doesn't take even the attacks of the enemy to set him up for failure. Why would a demon cry out, Son of God? Have you ever asked? You just assume, a bunch of you probably just rolled right over that. But there's a couple reasons why that demon would cry out, Son of God. Tony?
I mean, if this is the wrong answer, then tell me, but I would think that they recognize his authority.
Absolutely. So there's one answer. So if demons were created at the beginning of time, or however, let's just say they've been around for a while, they were in heaven and they've left heaven. Who was there when they were in heaven? Jesus. So they know who he is. That's one reason. There's another incredibly, probably the most important reason in this
Because
story.
if the know-it-all Pharisees didn't know
Fear.
it, the demons surely knew it.
Yeah.
Well,
What else?
Fear.
the thing is,
They know they don't get
what
him
if,
killed.
what if the
They can say it again. They have to worship him. So these people, this is the one who's created to worship.
being
Chris?
called a false prophet and being sacrificed?
Yep.
It was not time for that to happen yet, so he told him to be quiet.
So what would be the logical conclusion if everyone thought Jesus was the Son of God?
Didn't believe.
They would kill him. If Jesus claims divinity in this moment, that means he dies. And we live in a world where we got a lot more crackpots and kooks than we can shake stick at. Okay? We got one on a road. Okay? Out there. So what I'm saying is, we're used to people claiming to be Jesus. Just go downtown, run into some homeless folks. You're going to find Moses, Abraham, Muhammad, Jesus. They're all living down there, right? If Jesus stands and says, I am the Son of God, we're okay with the Son of God concept, because he, after all, Jesus is the Son of God. But if you're Jewish, what have you just said God did?
Procreated?
You just indicated God had sex with a woman. Okay, I understand you've already embraced the Virgin Mary. You've already embraced that concept. Those things don't exist yet. So what were those demons saying?
That he was a physical being.
That they're saying he's the Son of God, but that doesn't mean that means something completely different to those people hearing it than what it means to you. Because you have embraced him as the Son of God. But for them, that is blasphemy worthy of death. So why would a demon cry out, Son of God?
To get him killed.
To get him killed.
Is that why the Pharisees want to kill him?
And it's not that they're lying. It's not that they're presenting anything that isn't true. And here's what we learn about evil. Evil masquerades as light. We know that about Scripture, from Scripture, right? Evil gives the right answer to give the wrong result. This is how we know what is truly evil. It's when you watch a television show or a movie, or you read a book and the plot line and you're coming along, and what makes it more shocking is the twist at the end, the thing you didn't see coming. And that's the thing that leaves you most disappointed. It happens in our relationships. It happens with our friendships. It's one thing for a coworker to stab you in the back, but when your child does it, or your spouse does it, or your parent does it, that's what makes it from bad to that's evil. And so Jesus is at this place, and they start crying out, Son of God, and he tells them to be quiet. And most of you at this point who've been with me know Jesus will not even allow the demons to short circuit his plan or his purpose. Because it's not time yet. And so be quiet, because you're distracting me. You guys remember the story of Jesus when he's in the wilderness right after he's baptized? He's tempted. What were some of those temptations? You guys remember? What did the devil tempt Jesus with? Food. Feed yourself. Turn these rocks into bread. What else?
Jump off a cliff.
Jump off the cliff or the height of the temple.
Yep.
Everything you'll see will do what?
Give it to you.
The angels will
Save you, and then I'll give you all the world to bow down and worship you. There's another boomerang sort of layer to this deal. If Jesus stands up and I am the Son of God, he also has, I think someone said it this way, the authority to demand that they all worship him. There's a little bit of this subtle temptation all along the way for Jesus to grab hold of his authority before it's time. And you say, well, I don't get that. I don't understand that. You know what? I don't either. And Paul described it in Philippians chapter 2 this way. Jesus empties himself of everything that he could have for the purposes of you obtaining everything you could be. And rather than promoting himself, Jesus emptied himself so that he can elevate you. And so it doesn't make sense to me that Jesus would do this, because I wouldn't do it. I would want all authority. I would want power. I would want whatever I could do to build a crowd. But Jesus, and here's the principle, and here's the lesson to learn. It's fun. I don't mean it to be funny, but it's true. Jesus is smarter than his enemies. And he will not be manipulated off of his purpose or plan, even for good things. And so let's step back for a second. Lucas, can you do me a favor? Can you run back to the computer? I'm going to hit some pictures here. Just look at the map for just a second, because I don't want to miss this thing in here. First of all, Mark just throws out names of locations. And so this is Judea. This is the Judea province, 1st century. This is actually taken from a Roman map. So these are main regions and main cities. And it's no big deal, but all the places that Mark lists are on this map. Now, if you're like me, you can barely read it.
Yeah.
So we'll call this area up here the north and the south. So you asked a couple questions. First, you said, which lake? Most likely, it's the big one. It's the place Jesus goes to, Lake Gennesaret or the Sea of Galilee. And so there's 3 maps in there, Lucas. This is the first one. Go ahead and hit the second one. So this is the south, zoomed in close. So if you notice, the places pop in. Read that verse for me real fast, where it lists all the cities.
Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, Tyre, and Sidon.
Okay, and so here what we have is Idumea. This is the south. This is desert area. This is way, way, way south. Judea up in here, Jerusalem. So you see all these areas down here. Now hit the next map. North, and then you hit Tyre and Sidon. So look how far north Sidon is from the lake. Tyre is here, and then it also says areas beyond the Jordan, right?
Across the Jordan.
Across the Jordan. Hit that very first map for me one more time. And so when we say across the Jordan, this is the Jordan River. And usually when we say across the Jordan, it's debatable, but basically we're talking about this region right here. So, using my fancy schmancy pointer.
Looks like a javelin.
Gotta love technology.
Are you the javelin catcher?
I've got an earned degree. So read me that list again slowly. Somebody read it.
Judea,
Judea, here.
Jerusalem,
Jerusalem, here. And back up. Judea would basically reference this whole region, okay? Jerusalem, fairly important city, Jerusalem. Yep. What else?
Edemea,
Edemea, down here in the south, and probably extended quite a distance. What else?
Across
okay,
Jordan.
the areas across the Jordan, regions across the Jordan.
So this would be this area right here. What else?
Tyre and Sidon.
Sidon all the way north up here, and Tyre here.
Where was Jesus?
And Jesus is here.
The Sea of Galilee.
Okay. Gee.
If you look at this thing down here, this says 20 miles.
Oh,
You are well over 100 miles south, and you're well over 40 miles to the north.
So why was everybody in Galilee for?
And does anyone have any memories of the opinion of people from Galilee?
Country bumpkins.
Country bumpkins. Could anything good come from
Nazareth.
Nazareth? And yet, all of these people hear about what's going on, and where do they go? To the country. They go from here to here. Now, just a second, put on your... Yeah, you got all kinds of questions. Let's walk through some stuff here. I want to get to each one of your questions. But here's a couple, but here's even a better framing question. So people traveled north and south. First of all, do you see from the north to the south? Covered the whole place. Okay, so when I say people are coming from the north to the south to here, what am I saying?
All around.
I'm telling you,
Everywhere.
Okay? And people do travel from the north to the south back and forth. You guys remember? When people walk back and forth north and south, what are they typically, which direction are they going? Carling said it, so say it loud. Trust yourself. They go the opposite way. You're not supposed to go from Jerusalem to Galilee. Which way do you go?
Galilee.
Galilee, Jerusalem, 3 times a year. This is like saying people in Branson come to Little Rock to watch a show.
We got an IMAX.
Okay? People come from Dallas to Little Rock to shop. You're laughing, but are you getting it? Here's the thing. You don't go from here to here to learn about God. You come from here to here. And being as we're from the south, you will greatly appreciate this. Do you know where the one place nobody goes to get anything good?
South.
Nope. The south, we got good food here. Where we don't go is where?
Louisiana.
There's nothing good up north. Whoa, I'm just saying. Here's what we know about all of this area up in here. This is where bad people live. The people who capture and kill Jews and Israelites. Guess which cities they're from? Caesarea Philippi, Tyre, Sidon, they're from the north. So the enemies of God's people come to find Jesus. Here's the other thing to take away. Whether you are the rejected, whether you are the enemy, Jesus is attractional to everyone. And Jesus inverts the whole program. He doesn't fast. He eats on the Sabbath. He heals people in synagogues. And he has the audacity to have the people in Jerusalem leave Jerusalem and come to Galilee. If you're a religious leader, where do you most likely live?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. What do we know from Scripture about religious leaders and the way they make their money? not to taxes, but on all the people who come to town to ask them about what it means and how do you serve God. Jesus does all the stuff to mess up all the systems. So think about it this way.
You messed him up.
You show up on the side of the lake to see Jesus. And you come because you've heard good stuff. You're just a really good, God-fearing, Torah-believing, kosher apple pie eating Jew. You do your best to keep everybody happy, to keep your family clean, and do what you're supposed to do. You heard there's a prophet out there preaching, doing crazy good stuff, so you go. And when you show up, who do you find?
Jesus.
Lepers, and sick people, and Gentiles, and people from the north, and people from all over who've come, and they're all pushing, jostling, and messing around, and doing everything they can get to him. You are confronted with something that you don't know how to handle. And what the text tells us is this, that at this point, the multitudes embrace him. That means there's something about Jesus that breaks all social barriers, that all societal constructs fall apart because his grace and his power and his message are there. That people who live in a culture where you can, on a good day, average 40 to 50 miles in travel time, will travel 200 miles just to hear the story and just to see the sight. We live in a culture and a context that is so fraught with anger and frustration and divisions. While we don't have north and south right now, we definitely have neighbor versus neighbor. We have people who will not spend the time of day because of people's ethnic backgrounds or their economic constructs. We live in a society that is segregated by the haves and the have-nots, segregated by the people who look at themselves in superior ways. We have ultra-religious and we have the anti-religious. And let me suggest to you for a moment that the only thing that brings all those groups together is Jesus. Racial reconciliation and nonviolence are wonderful concepts. Absent a move of God, they are simply concepts. Economic status, we can take everything everyone has, put it in a pile, and divide it up and give it to every other person, and equally divide it. But absent Jesus, all we've done is redistribute wealth. There is no political situation. There is no social construct. There is no religious form that will matter. There is only one thing that unifies an entire region that's divided against itself, and his name is Jesus. Right. So, if you really want to make change happen, change your message from come together to come around him. Because Jesus is the answer for our world. Have a great day.